Fiancé vanishes after leaving me with his sick son. Now his parents have disowned him and given me their house. For over 8 months now, I, F32, have been engaged to my fiancé, M38. For the past year, we have shared accommodation in his house. From his former marriage, he has a 7-year-old autistic kid who suffers regular illness. The lad requires much extra care and attention. My fiancé received a call from his ex-wife last week from another state, around a 6-hour drive away. He informed me he needed to go assist her since there was some kind of emergency. Although they don't often interact outside of talking about their son's care, I was shocked. Nevertheless, I knew that crises arise, so I said okay. That same day he left, declaring he would most likely return in 2 to 3 days. He still hasn't returned after 1 week. Every day I have been phoning him, and he always says the same. He will be back shortly, and it is taking longer than intended. He never provides me any specifics regarding what is really happening, though. I am here alone looking after his son in the meantime. It's rather difficult. Manage his particular requirements. I still care about the lad. He experiences meltdowns for which I have no idea how to control. He has been sick with a fever for the past few days, which is frightening since I do not know his medical history well. He needs help with simple chores that I am not always sure how to accomplish. Every day I'm growing more agitated and concerned. Why won't my fiancé inform me about the emergency's nature? Why is that so slow? I'm beginning to question whether something else is going on or whether there is truly an emergency at all. When I ask him straight what the issue is, he responds evasively, saying it's complicated or all excitement. I get back, not sure what to believe. He's shielding me from terrible news, but another part of me is dubious that he be lying about the whole event, since I feel as though something significant has happened. Dealing with his son around the clock wears me out, though this is far more than I signed up for. I love the boy. I am not his parent. Hence I am not suited to be his only caregiver for a long run. I worry I might do something wrong and botch up. Furthermore, upsetting me is my fiancé's lack of apparent awareness of how challenging this is for me. He hardly asks how we're doing when I phone. He has not volunteered to return or forward someone else to assist, like he has forgotten about us. What to do is unknown. Though I'm at my wit's end, I can't leave his son alone. Though I'm scared about overstepping or creating trouble, I'm thinking about phoning the parents of my fiancé to see if they might come help. If there is a legitimate crisis my fiancé is handling, I also want not to humiliate him. Am I overreacting? Should I be more patient, or is this as strange as it feels to me? I am beginning to doubt our relationship overall. What does it say about his dedication to me and our future if he could simply leave us like this without saying anything? I would much benefit from any guidance. Has anyone found themselves in a similar circumstance? What action ought I to take? Yes, this exploded overnight. I appreciate your replies and support overall. I'll try to address some often asked questions. I have tried texting him. Yes, he answers, but in the same evasive manner. No, I do not have his ex-wife's contact information. I have never run across her. Although his son is in special education, right now school is off for summer vacation. Part-time from home, I have been able to look after him around the clock. Together for 2 years overall, my fiancé and I have for much of that time. I have known his son, yet I have never been left alone with him for more than 1 day before. Many of you advise me to run a welfare check by phoning the police in his ex-wife's city, though I'm thinking about it. Should a family emergency arise, I worry about starting trouble. I believe I should let him 1 more day to provide me with a proper justification. If he doesn't, I'll attempt first to call his parents and then think about phoning the police. A few of you have wanted further history on our relationship and his past marriage. I will relate what I know. My fiancé spent 9 years married to his ex-wife. When their kid was 4, they divorced. From what he has told me, their split was much influenced by the burden of raising a child with special needs. Depressed and feeling overwhelmed, his ex-wife battled. They chose to split, even though they first considered counseling. Though it wasn't very nasty, the divorce wasn't really neat either. Their differences were mostly related to how their son was cared for and housed. They finally decided on my fiancé having main custody. His ex visits 1 week and a month, and for 1 week during summer and winter breaks. According to my fiancé, his ex-wife struggles with his requirements even if she loves their son. She agreed to limited custody. For this reason, she is usually late, but pays child support. Although my fiancé doesn't enjoy talking about mom, he has noted that since the divorce she has struggled personally. Though he never mentioned specifics, I sensed he meant mental health or perhaps drug problems. My fiancé had been divorced roughly a year when we first met. He told me, straightforwardly, that he had a special needs child and made sure I knew what I was entering. I respect his top focus. His son, as I have always known about it. I enjoy one of his qualities most of all. He is a fantastic, committed father. Our relationship grew really rapidly. Following a year of dating, we moved in together and he proposed 4 months later. Things have been rather decent generally. He treats me kindly, is diligent and is, until now, we had few big difficulties adjusting to life as a blended family. That's why this situation is so confusing and damaging. He leaving us like this, and being so quiet are absolutely against his nature. I kept thinking whether I missed any red flags or indicators along the road. Since many have inquired, a few more specifics regarding his son. He is 7 years old, mostly using a tablet software and some simple signs. He speaks when his schedule is thrown off or he becomes overstimulated. He is prone to meltdowns. His many dietary allergies and sensitivities call for a specific diet. He also has epilepsy, which is largely under control with medication, but still causes sporadic episodes. He physically is tiny for his age and exhibits some motor skill deficits. He needs assistance with restroom use, dressing and bathing. He wears pull-ups at night and occasionally throughout the day should we be out for a protracted period. During the academic year, he attends a special education program offering speech therapy, occupational therapy and other services. Usually, he needs continuous supervision, even at home. He regularly wakes up several times a night and struggles to fall asleep. I have before assisted in his care, but always with my fiancé at hand. Being totally accountable for him is the first thing I have done, and it is taxing. Doing something incorrectly, or neglecting a sign indicating he requires medical attention terrifies me. Some have advised me to ask his therapist or doctor for guidance. That's a good suggestion. I'll probably do that today. I'll compile a list of all his doctors and try to find some direction about the following actions with my fiancé. I'm not sure, though another part of me feels like this is unforgivable, regardless of the cause. Another part of me wants to provide him the benefit of the doubt. I'll fall asleep on it and decide whether to call the cops or his parents first thing in the morning. I appreciate once more all of your guidance and encouragement. When I get additional data, I'll update. Update 1. Though not fantastic news, I have an update. This morning, I broke down at last and phoned the parents of my fiancé. They knew he was even out of town, but not that startled. They drove right over to assist their grandson. I made the decision to bite the bullet and call the police department. Wife City to ask for a welfare check while they were on road. The cop I spoke with indicated they would send someone to her address and was quite sympathetic. The cops phoned me back. They claimed to have corresponding contacts. His ex-wife. Both are good. No emergency exists here. Privacy rules prevented the officer from providing additional specifics, but he stressed that there was no proof of any crime or threat. My fiancé called at last as I was organizing this information with my future in-laws. He stated he was away to personally explain everything, since he understood I must be angry and perplexed. He advised me to wait to make decisions until we could personally discuss things. Not sure what to believe, though I'm glad he's all right. And offended. With this kind of abandonment of us, what possible reason could there be? Like me, his parents are equally perplexed and offended. They have volunteered to till he returns late tonight. Although I appreciate their assistance with their grandson, I am dreading the upcoming conversation our whole relationship seems to have. Once we talk, I appreciate your help during this insane scenario. Update 2. For hours I have been looking at my desktop, attempting to come up with the correct words to describe what happened. I promised to let you all know, so here goes. I type this and I still find it difficult to believe it's real. Rather than arriving home as promised last night, my fiancé phoned. Relief flooding me at the sight of his name on my phone. That kind of relief was fleeting. I'm not coming home, he said with a strange calmness. I'm staying here with Sarah. The woman he'd claimed required emergency assistance, his ex-wife. I thought of myself as having been stabbed in the gut. What do you mean you're? I was able to choke out. What about your son? He stopped long before speaking once more. We have decided to attempt our marriage once more, Sarah and I, after our past week. Both of us believe this to be the appropriate course. I found it difficult to breathe. It cannot be occurring this way. But your son, I said, stuttering. She requires you. He has autism. He depends on consistency and schedule. You cannot just walk away from him. Still another wait. His voice was lower. almost embarrassed as he spoke once again. We have discussed it, and while we are repairing our relationship, we believe it would be too challenging to look after a child with such great requirements. For now, we believe he would be best staying with you and my parents. I came upon Crimson. The man I knew, the committed parent I had grown in love with, would never say something like this, would not forsake his child, particularly one with special needs. Your autistic son is inconvenient for your new life plans. You are leaving him? I snarled, anger replacing my surprise. Who are you? Right now I hardly know you at all. I wasn't listening while he tried to defend his behavior. I told him precisely how disgusted and damaged I felt. I called him a liar, a coward, a horrible father. I informed him I would be letting the authorities know his son had been abandoned, weakly protesting. You cannot do that. I grabbed and hanged. Watch me. My head whirling, I sat there in startled quiet for a few minutes. Then I turned behind me and heard a little voice. Where's Daddy? I turned to find her fiancé's son, clutching his iPad at the doorway. My heart started to break once more. How would I approach explaining this to him? I got him back to bed using hazy assurances that Daddy would be home shortly, though I had no other to say. It felt like a lie. I phoned my fiancé's parents once he was asleep. Arriving an hour later, they looked perplexed and frightened. I told them everything and got them seated. While I spoke, his father's face grew redder and redder. His mother broke down crying. When I finished, his father thundered, "What about his son? That would be too difficult. Too challenging? I'll demonstrate the challenge." Tears flooding her face, his mother was shaking her head. "I don't understand," she said repeatedly. "This is not at all like him. More than all, he adores that boy." Most of the evening, we stayed up, alternately feeling loss, uncertainty and rage. By daybreak, we had a strategy. First we visited the police station. When we described the circumstances, the cops were somewhat worried. They stated they would be looking at child abandonment and gathered through statements from every one of us. We treat cases involving special needs children very seriously. The detective reassured us, we shall be thoroughly investigating this. We next spoke with a lawyer to go over custody choices. I didn't have legal rights to his son as my fiancé, and I weren't married. As next of kin though, his parents might seek emergency custody. The attorney got right on the paperwork. My phone was blowing out messages and missed calls from my fiancé all through this. I paid them all little attention. His voice and his justifications made me sick. His folks settled me down at the kitchen table. When we arrived home, though they appeared worn out and damaged, their eyes gleamed with a steely will. "We have made a decision," his father remarked, his voice austere but emotionally charged. "We're drowning him." I blinked unexpectedly. "Are you clear?" "That is a major stride." His mother nodded, blotting away a tear. "We cannot respect what he has done, abandoning his child and lying to all of us. It is unchangeable. Even though he is our kid, we want nothing to do with someone who would do that. Our son raised him better than this," his father said. "I know I can't call someone who would abandon their special needs child's son. I'm not sure what's gotten into him." I nodded, too familiar with their suffering and resentment. "We wanted to also discuss the house and our grandson," his mother said. "We want you to remain here for as long as is necessary. We understand this has been rather shocking, and we want you not to have to worry about where to live on top of all else." I started to object, but she held a hand to halt me. "Please let us handle this. We know our grandson trusts you, and you have been quite wonderful. If he stays here with you for now, where things are familiar, we believe it would be best. We want him to have as much stability as possible, hence we will take custody." But tears welling up in my eyes made sense, particularly in the middle of their personal suffering. Their generosity was astounding. "Thank you," I managed to whisper. The following several days passed as a haze of activity. We visited social workers, spoke with lawyers extensively, and had many sessions with the kid of my ex-fiancé, attempting to explain what was occurring in words he could grasp. Seeing his uncertainty and anguish was terrible. Not understanding why his dad wasn't returning home, he kept asking for him. Though we did our best to console him, how would you explain to a 7-year-old autistic boy that his father had left him? My ex kept text, messaging and calling. At last I read some of his messages. They combined requests for understanding, apologies, and defenses. He said he still loved his son, but felt this was for the best. He mentioned that Sarah and he were intending to start over in another state, saying it would just complicate matters. He urged me not to notify the authorities. I ignored all of it. Instead, I forwarded every correspondence to the investigator working on the matter. The days stretched into weeks, and we adjusted to a different schedule. parents of my ex, visited daily to assist with their grandson. Knowing how vital routine was to him, we cooperated to keep his calendar as nearly perfect as we could. I put myself into studying all I could on raising an autistic child. I visited with his doctors and therapists, joined internet support groups, and read books. Though at times it was overwhelming, I was resolved to do right by this small child who had gone through so much. Through it all, his grandparents were really outstanding. They were there for every minor triumph, every sleepless night, every meltdown. Though I knew they were still working through their own loss and resentment over their son's behavior, they never grumbled. About 1 month after everything transpired, one evening I was sitting on the porch after at last getting my ex's son asleep. His granny came out to sit next to me. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she questioned softly. I grumbled and ran a hand over my hair. "I'm managing. Though difficult, we are moving toward it." She nodded, stroking my hand. "You are doing a really wonderful job. We really appreciate you staying by our grandson through all of this." Tears were pricking at my eyes. I said, "I love him," simply. I could not see walking away. "No matter how hard it gets." She mumbled a sorrowful grin. "That's what it means to be a parent overall. It's unfortunate our son found that incomprehensible." We watched the stars emerge in companionable silence for some time. She finally asked, "Have you heard anything more from him?" I gave my head a shake. "Not since last week." Trying to defend himself, he sent another protracted email. I answered none. She let out a big sigh. "I never thought I would say this about my own child, but now he has to live with the repercussions. He made his choice." I nodded, caught in a mixture of resentment and grief. "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed between mine. Don't treat yourself in such a way. Nobody of us saw this approaching. He tricked every one of us." Sitting there, I started to consider how much had changed in not too long. 1 month ago, I felt I understood the course of my future. I was planning to, with a man I loved, be stepmother to his special need son and be married. Future vanished from us now. In place of it was something I never would have thought possible. Along with his parents, I was staying in the house of my ex-fiancé, helping to raise his baby. Therapy visits, meltdown control problems occupied my days. Though it was not the life I had intended, I discovered as I sat on the porch that it was one I was beginning to adore. This small child had totally captured my heart since his own father had left him behind. His grandparents, who had every right to leave this disaster, had accepted me as family instead. Yes, there were times when I wanted to yell at the unfairness of it all, but there was also love and purpose and a sense of belonging I hadn't expected to discover following such betrayal. Regarding my ex-fiancé, I have heard via the grapevine that he and his ex-wife did in fact relocate outside of state. The cops are still looking at things. His acts probably have legal ramifications. Though generally I just hope he stays away. Part of me hopes he will face justice for what he has done. We are all resolved to show his son the love and stability he requires. He deserves better. I have no idea what the future presents, though I'm precisely where I need to be right now. Helping to care for a small kid deserving of all the love in the world. I'm not sure whether I can ever completely understand why my ex did what he did. I appreciate all of your help over this somewhat challenging period. More than you could have ever imagined. Your kind comments and guidance have meant I want to concentrate on our new family dynamic and give my ex's son all the care he needs. Hence I might not update again for some time, but know that your support has truly changed our life. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.